The story kicks off in Bighorn Hard, an isolated little town in Montana, where a very rude old lady named Ellen Coley lived. She had a simple routine. That morning, she stopped by the pharmacy to pick up her medicine and then went into a convenience store to buy 2 cases of beer. Nothing about her drew attention, and that is exactly why no one suspected who Helen really was. Meanwhile, the town sheriff, Wilston, caught a young woman named Abigail stealing chocolate bars and packages of beef jerky in the same store. Abigail had just lost her father, who died shortly before due to alcoholism. With no one else in her family, she had decided to abandon Bighorner for good. With no money and no provisions at all, she ended up stealing the food. Instead of arresting her, Wilston felt sorry for the girl and just let her go with a warning. He ordered his deputy Henry Darr to take her to the edge of town. During the trip, Henry tried to start a conversation a few times, but Abigail cut off every attempt at conversation. In the end, he left her near a gas station. Inside the station, 2 men named Kylie and Dane noticed Abigail trying to hitchhike and approached. They offered to take her somewhere, but she refused on the spot. Even so, the 2 kept insisting, and the situation was becoming increasingly uncomfortable for the girl. It was at this moment that Helen appeared and decided to intervene. She offered Abigail a ride, and the young woman accepted without thinking twice. Kylie and Dwayne tried to stop her, but she knocked them both down with an ease that didn't match the ordinary old lady appearance she carried. Abigail was shocked by that ability and thanked her for the help. During the trip, Helen discovered that Abigail intended to reach Mexico. The girl said she always dreamed of visiting Matthew Pitt, and she corrected her that Machu Picchu was in Peru, not Mexico. It was a silly mistake, but it showed how little Abigail knew about the world she wanted so much to explore. Instead of leaving her on the road and going on her way, Helen decided to take Abigail to her ranch, next to a construction site. Feeling sorry for the girl, she insisted that she at least have a good meal and sleep safely before continuing the trip. Abigail was reluctant at first, but ended up accepting. After dinner, the 2 had a surprisingly warm conversation for people who barely knew each other. Helen revealed that Abigail's father used to help her with household chores after her husband died. Abigail explained what had really happened to her father. He started drinking compulsively after the construction company of a man named Ducky arrived in town to build a dam. He loved the local stream, and seeing it destroyed devastated him inside. Not long after, he ended up throwing himself off the dam and drowning. Tired of that town, Abigail said she just wanted to see the world. She answered with affection that traveling opens anyone's mind, but that having a home to return to also made all the difference. To lighten the heavy mood, Helen joked, saying that now the 2 were orphans, and the 2 laughed together. For a moment, the sadness they carried seemed to become a little lighter. The next day, a powerful real estate businessman named Richard Ducky arrived at Helen's ranch in his limousine. Accompanied by his right-hand man, Mitt Clay went straight to the point and pressured Helen to sell the property, claiming that land was the perfect location for his new resort. He offered a high amount of money, said she could choose any property in his developments, and even promised a lifetime VIP membership. Even so, Helen refused coldly. Duck insisted, but Helen made it clear that as long as she was still breathing, her ranch would not be for sale at any price. Furious, Ducky returned to the limousine and ordered Mattel to get Helen off the property, whatever the cost. There, the conversation stops being about business and becomes a direct threat. That night, Helen secretly put various supplies in Abigail's backpack to help her on the journey ahead. She also handed her a hunting knife for her protection and advised the girl to act smart out there. Moved, Abigail thanked her without imagining how important that knife would still be later on. Later, however, Kylie and Dawine, who worked for Duck, invaded Helen's house. The plan was simple and calculated, to hurt her and make everything look like an accident. Dane started sabotaging the stairs, but she woke up hearing the noise, caught the man in the act, and went on the attack without hesitation. Despite her age, she easily overpowered Dwayne and knocked him unconscious by striking him with his own oxygen cylinder. Meanwhile, Abigail woke up because of the commotion and ended up finding Kylie inside the house, who started chasing her through the rooms. During the fight, she accidentally found a gun hidden in the closet and without thinking shot Kylie in the shoulder. Scared and in a panic, he fled while Bigayo stood still, shaken by what she had just done. Helen calmly consoled her and asked her not to tell anyone anything because she would take all the blame herself. Kylie ran to tell everything to Mitchell, who was disappointed to find out that 2 men had been unable to handle a single old lady. The next morning, the police arrived at the ranch and arrested Dwayne. Except instead of investigating the home invasion, Wilston preferred to talk about the fight Helen had with 2 men at the gas station. Then, the cops found 12 plants of an illegal plantation in Helen's barn. She explained that it was only for personal use, but Wilston stated that possessing more than 4 plants was illegal in Montana and could be framed as a crime. 2 masked men had invaded her house during the night, but somehow it was Helen who ended up being arrested. Deputy Henry showed discomfort with that whole situation, But even so, he obeyed Wilson's order and took Helen into custody, alone at the ranch. Helen was arrested. Abigail explored the house and found a secret room hidden above the basement. Inside, she discovered a weapon collection, several different passports, and old photographs, showing Helen wearing military uniforms. The penny started to drop. That old lady who took her in could have been a soldier or something even more dangerous. At the police station, one of the officers noticed Helen's tiger tattoo and praised the design, and even showed his own Ty Swift tattoo to compare. Meanwhile, Dwayne was making threats against Helen's house, but she just mocked his bruised nose. Shortly after, Dane paid bail and left the police station, while Helen remained alone in a cell. Helen demanded that Wilston protect her house and stated that the invasion had been ordered by Duck. Wilston ignored the accusations. Helen then confronted him, saying she knew he worked for Duck and asked for the last time if he intended to protect her. Cold, indifferent, he answered no. The answer made it clear that the town's law was no longer on her side. Shortly after, Kylie and Dane appeared carrying gallons of gasoline, making it evident that they intended to set fire to Helen's house. At the police station, Henry began to truly worry about her condition, took the oxygen cylinder to the cell, and found her lying on the floor. Desperate, he went in to help her, but Helen tricked him, took his gun, and locked him inside his own cell. On her way out, she immobilized another officer by holding his finger. And when a female cop tried to use a stun gun against her, Helen took the equipment and turned it against the two agents, leaving both unconscious. After escaping, Helen ran back home. As soon as she arrived, she handed the truck keys to Big Ale and told her to leave before the police showed up. She insisted she would be fine alone, but Abigail refused to abandon her there. A short time later, several squad cars surrounded the property. Helen waited calmly sitting on the porch with no sign of fear. Wilston confronted her and pointed a gun in her direction, but Helen disarmed him with extreme ease and knocked him to the ground, leaving the other cops shocked. Humiliated, Wilston ordered them to bring heavier weaponry. Henry tried to calm him down, warning that Abigail was still inside the house and that he didn't want to see her trapped in the middle of a shootout. Unarmed, Henry entered the house and tried to convince Abigail to leave, but she refused for fear of what the police might do to Helen and promised that no one intended to hurt an old lady. It was then that Abigail showed something she had found. She admitted she always believed her father was crazy, but now she wasn't so sure anymore. Revealed a map where several strange incidents were marked, all linked to other ranches in the region. One of them had been destroyed by a fire that authorities classified as a brush fire. The other lost the entire herd due to a rare disease, and the owners little by little took their own life. At first, Henry believed it was all just a coincidence, but the more Abigail explained, the more he realized there was something wrong behind those cases. Abigail had always believed that Henry was the one who found her father's body at the dam, but he clarified that he had only been the first to arrive at the scene. The ones who really found the body were Ducky's men. At that moment, the two began to suspect that Ducky's employees had murdered Abigail's father. Not long after, Mattel arrived accompanied by several armed men. Knowing that Abigail was still inside the house, Wilston asked for more time to get her out safely, but Mattel granted only 3 minutes. Wilston contacted Henry over the radio and ordered him to take Abigail outside. Henry refused and questioned why Ducky's men were even participating in that operation. With a heavy heart, Wilston ended up giving Mitchell the signal to advance. Henry still wanted to believe that Wilston might be an honest person deep down. Abigail, on the other hand, believed that he had abandoned them all to their own luck. Without any warning, Helen struck Henry and left him unconscious, seeing him as a risk to what was about to happen. Since they couldn't leave him passed out upstairs, Helen and Abigail dragged him to the secret room and tied him up to keep him out of the crossfire. Thinking about their safety, Helen locked Abigail and Henry inside the hideout before everything collapsed. Meanwhile, more of Mito's men arrived at the ranch. And this time, they weren't simple henchmen. They were highly trained mercenaries. While they prepared to invade the house, Helen spread traps throughout the rooms, calculating every move with the coldness of someone who had done that before. At the same time, the police investigated Helen's past. At first, they only found out she'd moved to Big Horn in 1999, and before that, there was practically no record of her life. But after sending a photo of the tiger tattoo to the FBI, the truth came out. Alan had been born in Russia. She was an ex-agent of the KGB, known by the codename Sword and Shield. She didn't just know how to fight. For many years, she'd killed people professionally. While the mercenaries surrounded the back of the house, DeWine found several training targets, all hit exactly in the center, and panicked. The men decided to ram a car against the house to clear the way, but Helen shot the tire before it could get close. In the back, the mercenaries started falling one after the other into the traps set by her. Terrified, Dane fled and abandoned all his companions. Right after, chaos took over the place when Mitchell and his men fired at the house non-stop, forcing Wellen to seek cover. They advanced more and more, and when Kylie opened the front door, another trap was triggered and threw him violently onto the lawn. The invaders finally entered the house, but she moved silently through the shadows, eliminating her enemies without being seen. Meanwhile, Abigail tried to force her way out of the secret room, and the mercenary, hearing the noise, started trying to break down the door. At the same time, Helen eliminated the invaders one by one with frightening precision, collecting their weapons to use against the rest of the group. Her aim was so perfect that it only took a single shot to drop each target. Abigail untied Henry from his bindings right as the mercenary invaded the hideout shooting. Henry reacted and fought against him, but ended up overpowered. At that moment, Abigail hit the invader with a baseball bat, saving the deputy's life by very little. In another part of the house, she started having trouble breathing after all that effort. She tried to reach her oxygen cylinder, but Mattel saw her first and opened fire. Ian dove to protect herself, but ended up getting hit. Even wounded, she returned fire. Mitchell used the body of one of the dead men as a shield until she ran out of ammo. Impressed, he praised her and said that, in the prime of her youth, she must have been a true killing machine. Then, he threw her against the ground and prepared to execute her. Before pulling the trigger, he asked if she had any last requests. With absolute calm, Annan answered that he should aim for the head. When Mattel turned around, he found Hin pointing a gun directly at him. A short time later, Helen, Abigail, and Henry tied up Mattel and began to interrogate him. They wanted to know why Ducky was so desperate to kill Helen right now, since in less than a year the government would take possession of the property anyway. It was then that Mattel revealed the truth. Ducky owed a huge amount of money to extremely dangerous people, and if he didn't finish building the resort by next summer, he would be ruined. That was why Helen needed to disappear immediately. At that moment, Helen's lung disease worsened, and she needed to take her medication. While Abigail was trying to help her, she accidentally knocked a corkscrew off the table, and without anyone noticing, Mattel grabbed the object and hid it. While Abigail took care of her in another room, Mattel started provoking Henry, reminding him that Wilston had abandoned him to die. Henry lost his temper, got too close, and ended up surprised. Using the hidden corkscrew, Mitchell managed to overpower him. Abigail and Helen ran back to the living room, but it was already too late. Mattel set the house on fire and took Henry hostage. As he fled, Helen shot at him, overcome with rage, but Mattel managed to escape. Right after, his men surrounded the house and opened fire, preventing any escape attempt. With the fire spreading rapidly, Helen, Abigail, and Henry returned to the secret room, grabbed some supplies, and escaped through a hidden tunnel. Outside, Mitchell and his men watched the house being consumed by the flames, believing everyone had died inside. However, the three had already managed to escape. The place she loved so much was being destroyed before her eyes, and that left her completely devastated. That decision of Mattel's was going to cost dearly, and he didn't even know how much yet. The next morning, Mattel's men searched the wreckage for bodies, without imagining that the three had escaped with their lives. Meanwhile, Helen led Big Ale and Henry to a truck hidden in the forest, far from the enemy's reach. During the trip, she finally revealed her past completely. She shared that she had never had a real home. Still a little girl, she was taken from the streets by the KGB and trained to kill, with no choice and no real childhood. Years later, she met her husband, and together they built a happy life in a real home. Now, that home didn't exist anymore, and that loss broke her heart. The three knew they needed concrete evidence to take Ducky down once and for all. It was then that Abigail remembered that her father might have discovered something before dying. They headed to his trailer and searched through his belongings. There they found documents that linked Ducky's real estate project to other ranches that had been destroyed over the years, forming a pattern that no one had put the pieces together before. Meanwhile, Dan received a call from the Bears, to whom he owed money. They demanded that he show up in person to sign some documents, and the tone of the conversation made it clear there was no more room for delays. In the forest, Abigail finally broke down. She realized she had spent the last few years hating her own father, feeling ashamed of him and treating him with the same contempt that the whole town showed. But now she understood that he was right the whole time. He had never been crazy. Ducky really was the one responsible for everything, and that discovery weighed as much as the loss itself. Now, Abigail and Alan wanted to make him pay for his crimes. Meanwhile, Henry sought out Sheriff Whiston and informed him that the state police were already on their way to arrest him. Whiston's time as Duck's protector had come to an end. That same night, Ducky found out that Helen was still alive, and fear took over him almost instantly. A few moments later, the lights on the property went out. One by one, the guards outside started to die. Helen moved through the shadows like a ghost, attacking in silence with absurd precision. Terrified, Dawine hid Duck inside a closet and handed him a gun. Then he stood guard, trying to prepare for what was about to happen, even knowing he had absolutely no chance. At the same time, Abigail installed explosives on the dam, determined to put an end to all that had destroyed her father's life. While she worked, Kylie suddenly appeared and revealed without any remorse that it was he who had murdered her father. He then attacked Abigail, beating her while cruelly taunting her. But Abigail discreetly pulled out the hunting knife that had been given to her on the first night and plunged it into Kylie's stomach, leaving him to die right there. At Ducky's property, all the guards were already dead. Someone approached the closet where he was hiding. Desperate, Ducky fired non-stop through the door, completely emptying the gun. When silence took over the room, Helen opened the closet and pointed her gun at him. Duck believed she had come to kill him, but revealed that he wasn't her real target. She was there for Mitchell. When Mattel appeared, Alan made it clear that this had become personal because he had burned her house down. She shot him in the hand, making him drop his weapon. Mitchell challenged her to hand-to-hand combat, saying she fought like a man. Helen accepted without hesitation. In the beginning, Mattel gained the upper hand and managed to overpower her. Maselli ripped out one of his eyes in a single, brutal motion. When Mattel tried to stab her, she turned the weapon against him and killed him right there, finally settling the open score they had. Later, she took Duck to the forest and signaled Big Ale. At the same time, the girl detonated the explosives, destroying the dam that had cost her own father's life. Duck insulted Hen, but soon one of the bears arrived to collect the signed document. As soon as he saw Hen, the man recognized her immediately and showed great respect for her. While the two talked in Russian, Ducky smiled, convinced that the man had come to kill Hen, but the truth was much worse for him. Helen allowed the Russian to take Duck away, knowing exactly what his fate would be from then on. Sometime later, Abigail in the newspaper that Ducky was still missing after the massacre. Henry, now promoted to town sheriff, appeared to deliver Helen's medicine, fulfilling that small gesture of care that had become a custom between them. Before leaving, Abigail and Henry said a warm goodbye. In the end, Helen and Abigail decided to leave town together. Using the trailer that belonged to Abigail's father, the two finally started the trip to Machu Picchu, leaving behind a destroyed home, but taking with them a family that had somehow found a new one.